הזה התפללתי, כי לילד הזה התפללתי.
Hi everyone, Ruben Levine here. It happens to be December 31st, 2020. It's already dark, which in the Jewish calendar means that it's already tomorrow. And tomorrow is Erev Shabbat, the Eve of Shabbos, and I guess for us Jewish people, it's a momentous occasion tomorrow because this weekend we're going to finish the book of Genesis in our weekly reading. So we're actually closing a book, and that's usually a very joyous occasion, and it's an opportunity for us to do what's called a siyum, to end a sefer and start a new sefer next week, which is going to be Exodus, Shmot. It's a very good time to make a blessing and have good thoughts when you reach a momentous moment like this and closing of a cycle and the beginning of a new cycle. So in honor of that, I think it's important for us to look at this parsha and see if there's anything we can glean from that. And in fact, there's a very obvious one. This last portion of the Torah that we read in Genesis talks about Jacob. He's lying on his deathbed, and he calls his sons to come one at a time to give them their final blessing. And if you look at the blessings that each of the boys, the sons of Jacob get, who are one day going to be the heads of entire tribes that are going to be named after them, that are going to be descendants of them, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people are going to come from each individual son of Jacob. And he has a different blessing for each one of them. There's no blanket blessing. You should be matzliach, you should be successful, you should be healthy, you should have prosperity, you should have nachas from your children, boom, done. And, just give a blanket one. Why don't you give the same one? And if you look closely, in some cases they're so drastically different. Like by Shimon and Levi, it says, Shimon v'Levi achim klei chamas. Simeon and Levi are brothers of stolen tools. It goes on to say, Mecherotehem are their weapons. These stolen tools are the weapons that they use. Into their design may my soul not enter. With their congregation do not unite. Very, very harsh blessing, if you want to call it that. But later on, you get to someone like Yisachar. He says, Yisachar chamor garem rovetz bein hamishpatayim. Yisachar is a strong-boned donkey crouching between the boundaries. And there's very, very deep messages in each one of these. And of course, Jacob wanted what's good for all of his children. But he needed to get a message across to them because they had a unique identity. They had a unique set of challenges. They each had a unique set of strengths and weaknesses. They each had their own destiny. They were each at different phases of their life. They had their own emotional and social and economical challenges. Each person was different. I'll give you another one. Naphtali, the son, is a hind sent off who delivers beautiful sayings. He was like a deer that was jumped and was quick on his feet. Ayala shlucha is what we call Naphtali. And when Jacob is done blessing all of his sons, the Torah tells us, and I'm sharing with you what is brought down in the Sefer Chafetz Chaim, but the entire pasuk, the entire phrase goes as follows. At the end of the blessings, he says, the Torah tells us, Ki ela shiftei Yisrael shnemasar. There were 12 tribes of Israel. V'zot asher diber lahem avihem, and this what their fathers spoke to them. Vayevarech otam ish asher kivirchato berachotam. He blessed them, each according to his blessing, he blessed them. Each one had a different blessing, had a different set of needs, had a different vision, a different set of potential, and a set of challenges that they needed to overcome. So let me show you here in what the Chafetz Chaim brings down, an interesting story as follows. On the pasuk, Ish asher kivirchato berachotam, Bachur ben Torah ba lifnei Rabbeinu. There was a a young man who was very, very learned and pious that went to the Chafetz Chaim. Lekabel birchato lehinatzel mil'atot hatzava. He didn't want to be drafted to the Russian army, and he came to the rabbi, to the Chafetz Chaim, to get a blessing so that somehow he would not be drafted into this environment and setting that was nowhere near as holy and as spiritual as the one that he was accustomed to, or the one that he seemed to flourish in most. Hiftir Rabbeinu, ein ladat ma yeh. And the rabbi kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, the Chafetz Chaim said back to him, you never know what's going to be. Everyone complained to the rabbi, how could you give this guy, such a ben Torah, such a spiritual and learned man, how could you give him this kind of a blessing? And he says back to him, Ha'im en shechim batzava mishi yif'al avora yahadut. Don't we need someone with this type of spiritual strength to go to the army and deal with all the other Jewish people who are there, who are probably more challenged and need the spiritual uplifting and need someone there to be their charge and their battery and help insulate them from losing their faith? And ultimately the boy went to the army, to the Russian army. Visham, achen, and believe it or not, once he was there, Pa'al yased mitevach kasher avur hachayalim haYehudim. He ultimately went and helped these soldiers, the other Jewish soldiers, keep kosher and eat the proper foods. V'sheyichna'em lishmor Shabbat, and he helped them and convinced them to keep the Sabbath. And he showed them ways in which they could limit their melacha, their working on the Sabbath. And he ultimately saved many, many Jews from falling off the derech and going away from the faith. And ultimately, so many people benefited from this boy ending up in the army. And at the bottom of the page, they tell over a story where they tell over the analysis of this story of Hagaon Rabbi Zalman Rotberg, Hevi Divrei Rabo. He brought down a story that was told over to him by the Hagaon HaTzadik, Rabbi Yerucham Emir from the Mir Yeshiva, She'amar Tamahani Al Manikei Brachot. Look at the way the brachas were given. Avur habracha yesh tzorach bekelim. Every single blessing needs a certain appropriate amount of tool and raw material in order for that blessing to come true. Ulechol echad kelim acherim. And every single individual has different makeup and different chemistry and different tools, different raw materials, different strengths, different situations. Umemela yesh lo tzorach bebrachot acharot. And therefore each one needs its own bracha and its own tefillah and its own prayer. And this Shabbos, when we do the siyum of the Sefer Bereshis, think about how each child can benefit from the right blessing. The reality is that no matter who you are a child of Hashem, the Lord. And we learn in the Gemara, and it's brought down in numerous places, the rabbis teach us that even when something unfortunate happens, or we're presented with a challenging situation, we have to say Hatov v'Hametiv, that it should be good and it should be turned into something good. And sometimes when we encounter challenges or even negative feedback or something that we may think is condescending, we have to understand that it's for the good. Sometimes we need to be dealt with harshly. And in order to succeed in life and be on the proper derech, we need to change. And if we go back to what we said earlier about Levi, who got this harsh blessing from his father, something changed in him because ultimately Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, and Aaron, and the entire priestly tribe of Levi came from this man. And it's important that we say that we should have the right type of blessing, and we should have the right type of outcome, and we should be able to go ahead and change. And this is our opportunity. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom Umevorach, a good Sabbath, that it also should be blessed.